Who's that? That's somebody else.
Morning, everybody. Morning, Ali.
Morning, Moira. Good morning.
He's all here.
Morning.
Hi.
Hi.
All got Francis and Jack. I think they're connecting in. Ali and Sandra, Jennifer. Welcome, everybody.
Can't get my picture up.
Oh, right. Is that you, Jennifer?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So it's have you pressed like the camera to
Oh.
Bottom left corner? There should be a little like video camera icon.
I don't see that.
Camera there. No, the other one.
It should say start video or stop video.
Oh yeah, that yeah.
Oh, right.
Oh, you were seeing. Nice to see you, Jennifer.
Moira, can you see us? It's Moira and Robert.
Oh, Moira, now let me see if I can see you. I can't at the moment.
No, we've got you. But
yeah, can you see me?
I can
Yes.
see you, yes.
Yeah,
Right there. That right.
yeah.
Record.
Hi, Shirley. I'm just putting yeah. You maybe come up in a wee minute. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Moira.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Titan event, and thank you all for giving up whatever exciting thing you were going to be doing at the moment. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Today we've actually got Michelle, who's the sales manager. Oh, see you now, Moira. Hi.
Got you now.
See you now. Hi, Bob. Today we've got Michelle, who's the area sales manager. She covers the southwest, which is Miles Morgan territory, as you know, and she also covers.
That was all right there.
At the moment. She's covering Scotland. And we've also got Phil, who's the product manager from Titan, who's going to be doing the talk today. And so feel free to ask any questions. It's all quite relaxed and informal. So if you've got any questions at all, and we feel free to ask them. And Michelle's going to do a little sort of update at the end as well. So I will pass over to Michelle.
So hi everyone. So yeah, as Moira said, I'm down in southwest in lovely sunny Devon today. So I don't know what your weather's like by comparison, but it's glorious here today. So I'm feeling quite smug. I'm sat in my cold office. I'm just going to introduce Titan a little bit. Has any of you travelled with Titan before? Little hands up. Brilliant. Oh, I love a lot of newbies. Great. So I can tell you all about it. Hang on, we've got somebody with their hands up. Francis. So Francis, I think you're on mute.
We'll get her unmuted.
Francis, we can't hear you if you're trying to say something. On the bottom left corner, you should have a little button like a microphone that says mute.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'll do, I'll maybe get I'll give her a wee phone in a minute, Michelle, and say to
Okay.
you. Oh yeah, I think it's connecting now. Yeah, it's maybe connecting now. Here we go.
Right, all sorted?
I think so. I think we are now. Yeah.
Okay, right. So I'm going to start. I'll introduce Titan. Can they not hear us? I don't know.
I think everybody else can. Yeah.
Can everyone hear me? Have thumbs up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start. I'm going to give a little introduction to Titan, and then I'm going to hand over to Phil, who's going to tell you all about Africa, and then I'll come back and let you carry on a little bit after that.
Yeah.
I can see. I'm only interested in her.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to. So what we'll do is, again, any questions, if we do those at the end, but if I can ask you to mute your microphones just whilst we're presenting, and then we'll go through afterwards. Let's try this.
Just say mute it.
So can everybody see a lovely green screen with some elephants? Yeah. Super. So, as I said, I'm Michelle from Titan, and now my computer's not doing what it's meant to. Let's get that going. Okay. Oh.
No.
It's all about the love of travel. Everybody who works here has a real passion. We all love to go and explore new places, see new things, and really that's what Titan's all about. It's about bringing the magic of the world to life for our customers. Absolutely unbelievable, just magic. Near perfection as it gets. It's just overwhelmed. Exhilarating. Breathtaking. Fabulous. Spiritual. Experience to behold. This is our 6th Titan tour. They really look after you well, I've got to say. Sometimes
What?
you get once in a lifetime moments.
Okay, so that gives you just a little insight into Titan itself. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about why Titan and why escorted touring. So from touring, with a tour, you really get a ready-made itinerary. That's been carefully put together by people who really know the destination inside out. And that's what you're going to get from talking to Phil today. They know what to see, what to skip. They know the routes to take, the hotels to stay in. And they're trying to organise this kind of complex itinerary on your own can actually be quite overwhelming. A tour takes all the stress out of that away. With a tour, you really know that you're getting quite a lot for your money. So our experience-led itineraries, it's not about passive sightseeing anymore. It's about helping you immerse yourselves in the destination. Generally, people want to taste the destination, they want to make and do things. So we're providing much more hands-on experiences. So wine tastings, cookery classes, opportunities to spend the morning at a rural farm in Vietnam or have a local coffee with a family in Ethiopia. So that's not just relevant for tours either. It's on river cruises. People are increasingly looking for voyages tailored to certain interests like art and music. There's also reassurance in a tour. So with a tour, you can really go off the beaten track, and that in Africa is the key. But you still have all the reassurance of traveling with others. Tour managers are on hand 24 hours a day, should anything happen. Language barriers, parking problems, navigating unfamiliar roads, knowing where to visit certain sites at certain times, whether you need to buy tickets in advance. None of that is a problem on a tour. So it's no surprise that touring really is such a popular option for solo travelers, particularly now as well as the security and reassurance they have. They're traveling with like-minded people. They already have a ready-made group of travel companions. And often that's one of the biggest worries for our solo travelers is being on their own, which ties into the social aspect for Titan. Our customers actually tell us that this is the most important and most enjoyable part of their holiday. It's why we have now changed our strapline to perfect moment shared. A lot of people love talking about the experiences they've had that day, comparing photos, chatting over meals. Some don't, and that's okay too. Some people prefer to keep themselves to themselves, and that's the great thing with a tour. You can be as sociable as you want to be. Now, we've had customers meet their future husbands and wives on tours. Some make lifelong friends who they've travelled with again and again. I think it just makes it so much more special. A bit like going to a football game for me. It's those highs and lows that are shared that really make it quite a special experience. So why Titan? Well, we've got a multitude of awards and over 40 years experience to name. We're the escorted tours specialist. We're determined to create and offer the very best escorted tours while keeping our customers safe and well and happy. So we've got a protection promise, and this has been created to make sure you feel safe and secure when you choose to travel with us, from ensuring that you have clean accommodation and an environment throughout, following current social distance guidelines, and prioritising your health and well-being. We're also continuing to monitor the situation to make sure that you have a worry-free holiday. So we also have a hassle-free bookings and unlimited changes. So you can book your holiday with us, and we want to make sure that you can do so with confidence. Our early bird price promise means you'll automatically pass on the difference if we lower the price of your holiday after you've booked. We've also got our Flexi Deposit, which allows you to make unlimited changes to your holiday up until your final payment stage with no additional fees. And if we have to cancel your holiday, you can switch to another date or a tour. Changes of prices may well be reflected at that, and they'll be confirmed at the time, but you can make as many changes, or you can opt for a full cash refund within 14 days. No questions, no quibbles, no credit notes, all guaranteed. We're also ABTA and ATL bonded for you as well for your protection. So on our coaches and our excursions, all the drivers will be fully trained to ensure they follow the strictest hygiene standards. Hand sanitizer will be provided and must be used before entering and leaving the coach. At the moment, you'll need to wear a face covering whilst on board, and we may restrict the seat rotation policy, meaning your seat might be assigned. Coaches are going to be rigorously cleaned before each journey, and frequent touch points sanitised multiple times a day, including handrails, tables and doors. Where possible, fresh air will be circulating the coach as frequently as possible, and we'll also ensure air filters are checked, cleaned and replaced regularly. We'll use sanitised personal audio devices on excursions where possible, and to adhere to all the most up-to-date social distancing guidelines. So bear with me, technical.
Tell us about it.
It can't always go well, can it? So yeah, so we'll ensure all this. Now, obviously, vaccines are coming, but they're not mandatory for Titan customers. We have got
himself.
So we're having a constant updating of these guidelines. So if you're booking now to travel at late part of 2021, the different. Are you okay?
Michelle, is your sound okay?
It's actually really quiet on this one. Background noise, there's no talking. So this is just to show you our VIP vehicle. For anybody that hasn't seen them, these are a wonderful fleet of luxury vehicles. Now, VIP is included on every tour you do with Titan Travel. Now, obviously, many of your customers are up there in Scotland. We do include connecting flights down to London for the tours as well. So you've not got that worry. You still get the VIP home pickup that will take you to your nearest airport. And then you get the connecting flight down to Heathrow or Gatwick before joining the main tour. If you've got customers that aren't Scotland based and are sort of, as long as they're UK mainland, the VIP is included. There are no surcharges, there are no supplements, there are no mileage restrictions, and there are no single supplements on the VIP either. Now, this is a wonderful service. It's so much more than just a taxi to the airport. And I've got to say, the first time I experienced it, Mark, the gentleman you can see in the video, was actually my driver, really strangely. But actually, I was picked up really early in the morning, and I was a bit sad that none of the neighbours saw it, because he turned up in his suit, he took all the luggage straight off me, and I really did feel like my holiday started right then at my front door. And the great thing is, it happens in reverse. And I came home from a long haul flight, and to just have a smiling rep stood there waiting for me, was back in the car, and I was asleep before we'd left the car park at Heathrow in the back. It was lovely. Let's see if this works now. So the Titan product range, we are here to talk about Africa today, and Phil's really going to take that on secondly, but I did want to just cover the fact that Titan has a huge product range. So whether you're looking for an escorted tour, a river cruise, an ocean cruise, we also have a vast array of what we call our stay and explore holidays. Now, these are majority of European and UK breaks where you stay in just one hotel, no moving around, no packing and repacking the suitcase, and they allow you to delve deeper into a destination, but they include your excursions. So whether you're looking for a week in Northern Cyprus or a week on Lake Garda, these are great ways to do it. One of my favourites is our Swiss Rail Journeys one, because it's based in a beautiful hotel in the Swiss mountains, and then you get to go off and do things like the Bonilla Express, the Glacier Express. Now that also takes on, I'm a bit of a train geek if I'm really honest. I'll confess that to you lot, don't tell anybody. So where I love to use trains all around the world, and one of my favorite options is our Canadian options. So you've obviously got the Rocky Mountaineer out there. I was due to go there in April last year, which was sadly cancelled due to COVID, so I'm rebooking that one. But you've got some amazing Canada itineraries that really do make the most of those rail links. So UK short breaks are really selling well this year, so if you are looking to get away somewhere, that's definitely something to look at. We have an array of small group tours, and Phil has got some amazing small groups in Africa. I know Ethiopia is one of my favourite ones that he does. And then solos, we do have an entirely separate solo product where it is solos traveling together, but solo passengers are catered for on every single one of our holidays, and every holiday has some solo allocation. So I'm going to hand over to Phil now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so Phil can start sharing his.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone see my screen? Has everyone got a picture of, not a picture, but Africa written? Excellent, perfect. That's wonderful. So, well, hello, everyone. I'm Phil, and I'm here today to talk to you about my personal passion, which is Africa. So it's a real pleasure to me to have the opportunity to chat to people about the destinations which I love most and hold very close to my heart. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about that. I thought what I'd do though is start by telling you who I am. I thought it'd be really good to explain who I am, what I do, a bit about why I've got the credentials to talk to you about Africa today. And I'm not just some random person they pulled off the street. So I'm here for a good reason. So first of all, like I said, I'm Phil. I'm the long haul product manager here at Titan Travel. And a bit of background about me. Well, after leaving university, like many students, I was desperate to start traveling. However, I didn't have any money. So I thought I had a brainwave. I thought I'm going to get a job in travel and see if I can get some travel that way. And it worked out an absolute dream. So I secured my first job within travel when I was about 21 and was lucky enough to start seeing destinations such as Egypt, Kenya, South Africa. And I really picked up the bug very, very quickly and just wanted to see more and more of the world. Well, now it's been 16 years of working within travel. And I can honestly say I am loving every moment of it. I've been lucky enough now to travel around the world. And on my last count, just Africa alone, I've been there 36 times. So I've got a bit of knowledge in Africa now, I think, to share. Also, I think it's important to tell you sort of what I do as well within my job. So, well, for the last 13 of 16 years within travel, I've been a product manager. And that is, for me, it's one of the best roles or jobs I could personally get, and I believe most people can do as well. And what that entails is basically me traveling to new destinations around the world to explore and discover the next big thing, whether that's a country, a destination, an experience, a property. So that's my job, to go and find those elements. And then what I do is then I basically create and contract a tour itinerary, which you basically subsequently see in our brochures. So I pull it all together, all the lodges, all the safari experiences, all the dinners, and we pull them all together into a lovely itinerary, which you can see in our brochures today. So that's my job, basically. The other clever element of my job, however, is that I'm also responsible for the operational side of the tour. So when clients are traveling on their itineraries overseas, I have to ensure that everything is in place prior to them arriving. So whether that's down to wine tasting, a meal, I have to make sure that it's all in place. And it also stops me from contracting any crazy experiences or weird and wonderful hotels, because I know that if anything happens on tour, it's either the tour manager or the clients directly sometimes calling me to say, this is not working, what's happened? So I have to ensure that everything works prior to you arriving, and that's part of my job as well. Something that's important to mention as well about Titan is that every tour is tested from start to finish, either by myself as a product manager or somebody from my team. So we will go out and run the tour prior to any of you arriving to make sure that we just iron out any of those little niggles. So not only do we create the trips, we also check them in advance as well to make sure that they're the best possible experience for you on the ground when you arrive. So, well, why travel to Africa? Well, Africa is a big place, and sadly today I won't have the time to cover everything off in our allotted time slot. However, I'll try and give some sort of an overview of what you might expect from a tour of Africa, focusing primarily on East and the southern part of Africa. And we'll look at like the typical day on safari, on what to wear, maybe when to travel as well. So we'll go into all those sort of details. So there's numerous reasons basically why you would want to visit Africa. And I thought maybe I'll start by taking you through of some of my personal reasons why I keep getting drawn back and why I think I love Africa so much. I'll sort of take you through some of those first. So for me, first and foremost, the reason myself and I think most people travel to Africa is for the wildlife, and for very good reason. In my opinion, Africa offers the greatest concentration of wildlife on our planet, and it never fails to disappoint, in my opinion. From the wildebeest migrations in East Africa to the great apes of Uganda, and then the whale migrations across the southern shores of South Africa, it truly does have everything to it. I actually fondly recollect as a child watching David Attenborough documentaries with my father, often late on the Thursday evening, waiting for my mum to get home from her late shift. And I remember those days very fondly, and I now feel actually really privileged that I get the opportunity to witness many of these natural marvels firsthand in nature. So I also sort of look back on that with fond memories. But anyway, I'll talk more about wildlife later, but I think that's one of the primary reasons that people do go to Africa is for the wildlife. Then beyond the wildlife, you have the natural beauty and spectacular scenery, which I think this earth has to offer, whether that's the Kalahari Desert, the wide open plains of the Serengeti, or the dramatic landscapes of the Drakensberg Mountains. You've got loads of different types of scenery to be seen. Just looking at some of the images I've got in front of me here. So the top left-hand corner, that looks like the Serengeti to me. So you've got these amazing wide open plains where you can just see animals for miles ahead of you, and you just sit there on a safari vehicle with your binoculars and you can just spot stuff miles away. So that's a fantastic experience and beautiful scenery as well. The bottom left-hand corner is the Namib Desert in Namibia. So Namibia is not so much about the wildlife, but it's more about the scenery and the amazing vistas. And those are that you can see in the background there, the orangey coloured sand dunes. That's the Sossusvlei sand dunes, and they are. The pictures don't do it justice. But if I was standing on those, I'm 6 foot tall, I'd be a pinprick. They're absolutely gigantic. They're the largest sand dunes on Earth. So our tour gets to go to those sort of destinations. And then the picture on the right-hand side is Blythe River Canyon in South Africa. And this is an amazing journey you can do when you travel from Johannesburg across to Kruger National Park. You travel along what they call the panoramic route, and you get these amazing vistas like this. And this is Blythe River Canyon, which I always find one of my favourite viewpoints around. Next to it's one called God's Window, and I always feel, I know why it's called God's Window. It's very easy to see because you feel like, you can see the earth below you. It's just an incredible experience. So scenery and natural beauty is definitely one of my top reasons for going back to Africa. Now, sunrises and sunsets, I'm a bit of a romantic at heart, I think. So the sun does play an important role across the African continent, and this could be one of the reasons that I find sunsets and sunrises both beautiful and meaningful when I'm traveling around Africa. When you're out on the vast open savannas, the sun is starting to set, and it really does sort of send like a shiver down your spine often. And I don't know, but you sort of get a true sense of belonging when you're in Africa and you get to see the African sunsets across the savannah. There's something about it that sort of triggers some sort of emotion. In Africa also, the endless vistas do seem like stretch forever on the vast open plains. So when the sun rises and sets, you get this amazing kaleidoscope of different colours, yellows, oranges, reds, and this constantly changing. So that's sunrises, sunsets is definitely a reason why I tend to love being especially in the African bush as well, out in the wild. night skies. Well, one of the joys about being in the African bush is enjoying the night skies. Due to nearly no light pollution when you're out in the bush, the night skies are so clear, and you can see thousands of stars above your head twinkling away. And often you can see more twinkling white stars than you can the darkness beyond. The image here actually is a fantastic image because it actually shows the density of the stars you'll see when you're in Africa out in the bush. You can see how dense they are. It's a stargazer's paradise, and often the camps will have experts, or at least local experts at hand to tell you all about some of the constellations of the stars. And also what I love is they sometimes bring a local in to talk about the mythology about some of the stories from the stars as well. So I always like that side of it as well, about the local legends that are up in the stars. I'm just before, it was pre-lockdown actually, before, I think it was the November before the March lockdown, I managed to get to Zimbabwe, and I was checking out some houseboats on Lake Kariba, and I was chatting to the boat owner about all different stuff, and then we got into the subject of stars because the sun had set by that point, and I was telling him I was fascinated by the night sky. And the next thing is amazing. He'd put the one of his beds from the cabins up onto the top deck and put a mosquito net over, and he'd allowed me to sleep up on top deck all night to view the stars, and it was the most amazing night's sleep we've ever had, because with the lovely cooling breeze from the Lake Kariba, and then the stars above your head, and the amount of shooting stars, I've never seen so many in one night. So it was quite an incredible experience. So definitely a reason for me to head back to Africa is also the night skies. Then you've got meeting locals. So whenever creating a tour, anywhere in the world actually, it's always important that there are opportunities for personal interaction to take place between the visitors, us, and the local communities. I believe it's a missed opportunity for both parties if we just purely put you into sealed vehicles or hotels and just move you from spot to spot. So I like to make sure we take advantage of those opportunities and get some form of interaction and meeting with local communities. The people in Africa are extremely friendly and hospitable, so you never really get a bad experience in that sense. So I always think it's a great thing to meet the locals. There's another thing that the locals say as well in Africa, is they say make a plan. So often in Africa, things don't always go to plan. Things do go wrong. You know, you get your punctures. Sometimes your engine seize up. You know, it's a rough environment out there. So things don't always go to plan. But they have a saying, it's called make a plan. And they're so, you know, the way they think and work, they're always trying to think, you know, how can we fix this? How can we resolve this? And they've got this amazing dogged spirit. So I think by meeting the communities and meeting people, you sort of you find that side out about them. So it's definitely important for me when creating tours that we get those personal interactions going. Food, like in many parts of the world, is an important part of African culture, and therefore there are many different styles and types of cuisines to try. I always find that food is a great leveler and also a great topic of conversation. So in the picture here in the top left-hand corner, there's a picture of some bunny chow. So bunny chow is, you find it down the east coast of South Africa, where there's a fairly heavy Indian influence down there. But what they are is, these are quite delicate things. These are bread rolls, and they hollow them out, and then they fill them with some beautiful curry and curry sauce. But I say these are delicate because often the ones I've seen are actual full loaves of bread, like big bloomer loaves. And they hollow them out and fill them to the top, and then they just walking down the street eating loaves of bread and curry sauce. But there is an absolute delicacy out there, so I'll definitely recommend trying that if you're down sort of the east coast of South Africa. Then looking at the other photos here, we've got some on the bottom left-hand corner, you've got some biltong there. So this is dried cured meat, which has often got some sort of pepper or spice on the outside. This is it's the best accompaniment when you're traveling around South Africa on long road trips. So whenever I get there, the first thing I say to my driver, if we're going out for a long trip for a few days, I'll say, can we stop first and get some biltong? And we get a big bag, and we have it in between us in the front seats, and we just nibble on it as we go around. But it's an absolutely great accompaniment to long journeys. It's a great snack. What else have we got here? Oh, the top right-hand corner, that's the braai. So if you've ever spoken to a South African man, either here at home or in South Africa, the topic of conversation nearly always reverts back to the braai, or what we'd call a barbecue. They absolutely adore them, and they will spark up the barbecue at the at the slightest moment when they get an opportunity. So I guarantee that if you're traveling through South Africa, you will get the chance to try out one of their traditional braais, which are mostly meat-led, but they are fantastic. And I've also put in here a little picture of some red bananas. So it's always a fond memory for me, this actually. When I first started out traveling, one of my first trips was down to East Africa, to Kenya. And I remember being out on the road and obviously coming from the UK, I'd only ever eaten yellow bananas, or sometimes green if you get them earlier, but yellow bananas in the UK. So when I saw these red bananas on the roadside, I was a bit blown away and thought, what the hell's that? So I suppose that's the beauty of travel, isn't it? You get to find these weird things out. But so we stopped the car and purchased a bag of red bananas, and they are so delicious. They're beautiful and sweet. They're much sweeter than the yellow bananas, but they're once again, they're an amazing accompaniment if you're on long road journeys at any point. So whenever I'm in East Africa now, I always ask my guide, once again, a bit like Biltong in South Africa, I ask for a bag of red bananas at some point as well. So it's always lovely to have those. So anyway, so there's a few of my highlights about why I always get drawn back to Africa, and I think that other people do as well, some of the sort of hot topics. But I thought maybe let's dig a little bit deeper now into Africa. And let's start with the wildlife, because I think this is what most people want to talk about. So within Africa, there are so many variations and different types of wildlife to be seen. Therefore, I'll try and split these into regions. So I'll start with East Africa to start with. East Africa, you have a very classical and romantic safari experience, either in the Masai Mara in Kenya or the Serengeti in Tanzania, where the wildlife is truly wild and follows a migratory pattern. East Africa safaris remind me of Hollywood movies often, where the film, like a film set, where the lighting and the settings are just perfect and great for photography. And what you'll find in East Africa as well is most of the national parks will have big 5 game experiences in them, so they have the big animals in there. Then you've got Uganda and Ethiopia, which have slightly different variations of wildlife. So firstly, both Uganda and Uganda have some astonishing birding opportunities. If anyone's into their birds, I always tell them to go to either Uganda or Ethiopia if possible, because the birding there is extraordinary. I'll get some amazing experience whenever I go there for birding, and I'm a bit of a birder myself. But then Ethiopia also then has the bleeding heart baboon. So he's the one there is at the center of your picture. He's quite an imposing sort of breed of ape, and they live fairly high up in the Ethiopian mountains at high altitude, but they're very accessible, and our tours do go there. And what happens is they look fearsome, but they actually sit there all day just grazing on grass. They're herbivores, they eat grass all day, so they're munching away. But then in the evenings, they have to do the most extraordinary thing where they have to go down and climb onto sheer cliff faces, because like I said, they're up in the mountains, but they have to hang off clear cliff faces because of the predators. So you'll get the leopards often coming in, or wolves coming in, trying to take them down, I suppose. So they're quite incredible and hardy animals, but they're great to sit with. I sat with them for a couple of hours once, just watching them, taking some photographs, but they're very striking to look at. Ethiopia also has a dense population of wolves. So if you're into wolves, then definitely Ethiopia is a place to go. Uganda, from a wildlife perspective, is obviously famed for gorillas and chimpanzees. So these treks do need a certain level of fitness if you're going to take them on. You will be moving through mountainous regions and trekking through some thick vegetations, but the thing with the gorillas is there's many different populations now, which is fantastic news, and they're set in slightly different areas. So what happens is when you get to Uganda, you'll be almost assessed. They'll look at your fitness level, you have a chat and do a survey, and then they'll put you on certain tracks that best suit your requirements. But it's such an amazing experience and so rewarding to be able to see the gorillas up front and personal. I did it about 4 years ago now, was the first time I did it. And it was an experience. So we did I think about 4.5 hour trek to get to our troop of gorillas. And then when we got there, we sat with them for around about an hour. And it's such an amazing experience to be able to look in their eyes and get that connection. It's quite something. So, and also had quite the experience where the little gorillas, the baby, about 4 baby ones, and amongst 16 of them, started playing with my shoelaces and trying to tie them and do things with my shoelaces. And after about 5 minutes of this and the fun of it all, the mother got a bit stroppy. I think she was more stroppy with the kids than me, but she came over and sort of put her hand on my shoulder and pushing it back slightly, and then scooped up her little young ones and took them back to relative safety. So that was an amazing experience. And then also in East Africa, you've got the shoebill, which is the bird in the bottom right-hand corner. So it's quite an imposing bird. It looks almost prehistoric, from the dinosaur times, doesn't it? I'm pretty sure that's where it originates from. But a very imposing bird. It's around about 3 foot tall, so it's big, it's tall. It comes about halfway up my side. So they're big old birds. And I saw this one it was in Uganda. And I remember, because I've got fond memories of it, whereby this bird was the first bird I got fascinated by when I first started out in travel all those years ago. I started out by writing brochures, the copy and brochures, and I remember seeing the picture of this bird in the brochure. I took it to my boss and saying, "What is this? I've never seen this before." And he goes, "It's the shoebill, and you find them in East Africa." So when I went to Uganda 4 years ago, I took that same picture with me and I took it to my guide and said, "Is there any chance we could keep an eye out and look for the shoebill?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, definitely. We'll see what we can do." So one day we spent like 6 hours out in the bush, and it's mostly swampland they live as well, so it's a bit mucky. Because they basically feed on frogs and toads. So we spent 6 hours trekking through the swamplands trying to find the shoebill. And we did in the end, and it was an amazing experience. So if you're ever in Uganda, definitely ask your guides if you can get the opportunity to see the shoebill, because they're quite an incredible and imposing bird to see. Right, so then there is Southern Africa, where you basically, the activities you take are often water-based actually. So especially in places like Zimbabwe and Botswana, so you will approach your wildlife by water, where it's much less imposing for them, so you can actually get much closer to the animals. The top left-hand corner, you'll see a picture there, and that's a very traditional dugout canoe called a makoro in Botswana, and they're dug out from a whole tree, and they dig out the center, and then you can then be punted around the lake systems of Botswana, but you can get very, very close to animals here, because they're very relaxed with you coming at a slow pace like this rather than in vehicles. Then the top right-hand corner, you have got the houseboats, which I was talking about earlier, where in Zimbabwe on Lake Kariba. So those boats there, that's where you'll sleep and you'll be dined, and you get moved from point A to point B. But there's also smaller tender boats at the back where you do your safaris from. So once again, you go into smaller vessels, smaller boats where you'll do your safaris, and you get down all the channels and get really close to the wildlife that way. So that's mostly in Zimbabwe and Botswana, you'll do your safaris by water. South Africa offers a more contemporary wildlife experience where you compare the rugged sort of game drives, where game drives are quite bumpy and dusty at times, but then you get the more comfortable luxury accommodation. So South Africa is a great big 5 animal destination. And however, what I would say is, compared to East Africa, the animals are more closely monitored by rangers, but they then have a better idea of where they are. But we'll come on to that a bit more later on as well. Madagascar. So Madagascar is an ultimate wildlife destination for me, as it boasts one of the largest and highest densely populated and biodiversity in the world, with over 200,000 different species of animals on their island, of which 3/4 are actually endemic to Madagascar. The most famous, and obviously probably one of the most adorable ones, are the lemurs, which are photographs there in your top left-hand corner. However, when I've travelled around Madagascar, I always get enthralled by the weird and wonderful bugs and insects actually. So you'll see there in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got the giraffe neck weevil, which is a weird little thing. They they're in the bushes, and you sort of see them scurrying around, but they're quite sort of alien to us, I suppose, but once again endemic to Madagascar. And you've got the cute little hedgehogs. So if you're lucky, you'll see one of these, but unlike our hedgehogs, in Europe, they have these big ears that come out the sides. They're absolutely adorable. When I first saw these, I really didn't think they were real. When I saw photographs, I thought that someone was kidding me, but they actually do exist, and I've seen them firsthand now myself. You've got the fosset as well, which is that cat-looking animal, sort of a smooth cat, stroke doggy sort of looking animal. These are quite hard to see. They live in the jungle, so they're quite hard to see, but they're the only predators in Madagascar. So they're the only things that will eat the the lemurs. Other than that, there aren't really many big cat predators, I suppose, in Madagascar. And then there's the red owl. You can see those out in the wild as well. They're interesting little birds. I've never seen one that red before, so I'm not sure if someone's colored that one in a bit more, but normally they are a beautiful red color, but normally not that bright, but they're stunning to see in the wild. And then the bottom right hand corner, you can see the baobab forests as well. So these are huge, gigantic forests. So most of Madagascar hasn't been deforested. It's been left to its own devices, really. And so you get these huge forests and woodlands of baobabs, and those things are huge, those trees. I mean, you can see in relation to that chap in his cart how big those trees are. So we get some chance to walk through those and meander through those woodlands as well when we're in Madagascar. So if anyone is really into wildlife and wants a really different experience, and I always recommend Madagascar to them. I thought it'd be handy if I chatted about maybe a typical day on safari as well, and why safaris are structured in such a way. So basically a safari it naturally depends on what accommodation you choose and where you are in Africa to how they work, but the majority follow a similar pattern, and for very good reason. Safaris tend to happen early in the morning and then later on in the evening towards sunset time. And the reason the safaris happen in those two periods is because that is when the predators are most active, and also a lot of other animals are active, but definitely the predators. And so a lion, for instance, will sleep the majority of the day. The amount of time I've seen sleeping lions is countless. But if you get up early enough in the morning, or you stay out late enough into the evening, that's when you start to see them moving and hunting. So that is why most of the safari experiences happen then. But I thought I'd run you through a classical day. So first of all, you basically get an early morning wake up call, and it can be early, so it's between 5 and 5:30 in the morning. You'll be woken up by your ranger, and then once you've sort of freshened up, you make your way to the main lodge, and you'll be served some lovely steaming hot coffee and rusks. And often in the morning it's pretty chilly out in the bush, so that coffee is certainly welcome that time in the morning. And then around about 5:30, 6 o'clock, you'll then head off with your ranger out on your safari vehicle and out into the bush. And normally you'll be in a vehicle with 4 to 8 people, depending on the size of the vehicle and the capacity of the lodges as well. At Titan, we do stipulate to all our lodges that every safari, the client must be seated at a window, so we can't have people in the centre. And the lodges are very happy to stick with that, because the main thing is when you're out on safari that you get a clear and uninterrupted view of the animals. We don't want people in your way, so that's one of our stipulations. The safaris tend to last for around about 2.5 hours, 3 hours, before you then head back to the lodge for a proper breakfast. South Africa is fantastic. You often get back and there's a big fry-up waiting for you, so I always enjoy that. But then really, it's time to relax. You're on holiday, so there's a nice chunk of the middle of the day when the weather is much warmer. The animals tend to then go and sleep and hide during the heat of the day. But this is your time to relax. So for you to read a book, take a swim, or view the wildlife from your deck. Because don't forget, the lodges that we selected and you're staying at are in the middle of the African bush. So often the animals will come to you sometimes in the day as well when you're on your deck. So that's quite an interesting experience. Lunch is served around about 1 o'clock to midday. Then once again, you get a bit more chance to relax before afternoon tea, and then following afternoon tea, then you prepare for your evening safari. And the evening safari drives always coincide with the most beautiful of sunsets. So they sort of time it just perfectly. So you're out on safari for about an hour, and then the sun starts to set. And what happens then is the rangers and the guides do this great thing where they'll stop the vehicle in a great location to see the sun setting. They'll pop the trunk, and then they'll pull out maybe a little table or some chairs and a selection of snacks and drinks, and they have a thing called a sundowner. So this is where you'll have a gin and tonic or a beer, whatever your favorite beverage is, and you'll sit on the most beautiful spot in Africa and just have time to reflect on the scenery and the wildlife around you, and just have a quick drink and chance to also stretch your legs, because sometimes safaris can be bumpy things, so it's quite nice to get out of your vehicle and just stretch your legs quickly. So following that evening safari, you then head back for dinner, which is often served around about 7:30, 8 o'clock. I've got a picture here of a boma in the bottom right hand corner. So the boma is traditionally where dinners are often served. So they're like a ringed fence of wood in the middle of the bush and a campfire in the middle. historically they were, well, they still are actually as well, but used for, the locals use them for cattle, but now they put tourists in there to feed them. So that's quite an interesting concept, but they're very nicely done. And you'll have your dinner there, often a braai, or if you're in South Africa, they might give you some a la carte menu as well in there. But yeah, you're basically underneath the stars eating your dinner in a beautiful environment. And then what happens in the bush? Normally you might go to the bar to have a beer or another gin and tonic, but normally people do tend to head to bed fairly early because you've been up from 5:30 in the morning, so it's fairly early. And you also know the next day you're going to be getting out early as well for your safari. So people are often tired by this point. So normally by 9:30, 10 o'clock, people are heading to their rooms to retire for the evening. So that's a typical day on safari. Now, in terms of accommodation, throughout Africa, there are many types of accommodation for all tastes and budgets. So this comes down to your individual preference, I suppose. You can either sleep in pop-up tents. I've seen there's services there where you can now sleep on top of Land Rovers in tents, or you can even sleep in 5-star hotels in some national parks as well. On Titan tours, within Africa, we tend to stay in either lodges, fixed camps, or hotels when we're in the cities. The lodges are fixed structures, so they're there permanently, often made of concrete and thatched roofs, and they're basically a hotel in the bush, but on a much smaller and more intimate scale. So you get that level of service that everyone likes to have. Now, so in terms of fixed lodges, I've got some pictures here to show you. So the ones down the left-hand side are lodges from South Africa. South Africa tends to hold all the sort of the collection of the better properties, I'd like to say. So they go slightly more out. So the top left-hand corner is actually a room, that a bedroom actually for one of our tours we use. It's in Bali Safari Lodge, and as you can see, you've got a lovely big double bed in there, bathtub, and a little plunge pool. So that's where you'll spend most of your days during the daytime to relax. And then the one below it is Mala Mala, which is in South Africa in Kruger National Park. Now, Mala Mala, if you've got any time today or in the future, do research Mala Mala. For me, it is hands down the best wildlife experience I've ever had. What you'd often find when you go to Mala Mala, you'll find the BBC and the National Geographic in-house, because they spend a lot of time there doing their filming. So Mala Mala is a private game reserve in the heart of Kruger. It's one of the, I think it is the oldest private reserve in South Africa. They got a huge expanse of land with inside Kruger with very few vehicles. So the density of wildlife in Mala Mala is just incredible. I always bore people with the story that when I went there first time, I saw the big five within 30 minutes, and that just never happened. So it's a truly magical experience and very fine accommodation as well. The lodges to the right-hand side of the slide, you can see there these are Kenyan lodges actually from the Masai Mara, but they're slightly bit more rustic, I suppose, and a little bit more dated. And there's good reason for that, because basically Kenya have been operating touristic tours for a lot longer, so sometimes their accommodation is slightly older. But I'm going to touch upon that a bit later as well. But it's slightly more basic in terms of accommodation in Kenya, but it's still very, very comfortable. Now, camps. Now, I spoke about camps as well. So we use a collection of fixed camps. So fixed camps and tents remain in place all year round. So they're just like lodges. They stay in one place and they're static and they don't move. But once again, they do offer that more intimate experience. I think what I always try to speak to people about when talking about camping in Kenya, it's not like when you went with the Boy Scouts. It's not that sort of camping. It's often there's a lot more luxury to it. So many of the tented camps have a sense of comfort and style and offer very luxurious environments, so like ensuite bathrooms, outdoor showers, Wi-Fi and the like. My son still thinks that when I go to Africa, he still thinks I'm sleeping in pop-up tents like we have in the back garden here, but it's nothing like that. It's much more luxurious. As you can see, these two lodges down the left-hand side are a camp that we use. It's called Elephant Eye in Zimbabwe. As you can see, they're fixed structures. They're on stilts because they actually get some floods there sometimes of the year, so water comes under that section, but we're never encamped during that time. But as you can see from the picture below, inside that fixed camp, you can see it's pretty luxurious. So it's like being in a hotel room almost, but in the bush. So it's a great experience. Then down the right hand side, I've put some seasonal camps. So seasonal camps are nearly always tented. And basically they're put up on a temporary basis. So they'll be there for 3 to 6 months. And then they're taken down, and they have to take them down, and the environment must be put back exactly as it was. And they're really, really strict. Most of the time you tend to find these camps in East Africa, so Kenya and Tanzania. And the advantage is they're seasonal because they're put in place when the migration's coming into route, basically. So they quickly pop up the camps for a short period of time as the migration passes through. So you're right in the heart and the thick of the migration during that period. And you're having an adventurous sort of camping experience at the same time. But they're, as you can see, even in the images there, they're still very, very comfortable in terms of living accommodation as well. But you often have like bucket showers in here. Now, the final one, I haven't got any pictures of this, but it's mobile camps as well. So you can also do camping on a mobile basis. And this is where you follow a safari route around a country. Often they're in Zambia or Botswana. And the camp is mobile. So what happens is you'll sleep overnight in your camp. The next morning you wake up, you go off on safari. Often they do walking safaris, horseback safaris in these situations. And where you finish your day, so you'll be out most of the day on safari. And wherever you finish that day, then that's where you set up camp again. So they put a radio call through to the team to tell you roughly where they're going to finish. And by the time you reach that point, they then set up a brand new camp in a brand new destination. But these are mobile, like I said, often found in Zambia and Botswana, and they're a bit more basic as well. So sometimes these are a bit more pop-up tent sort of styles, but it's a great adventure if you ever wanted to experience it. We don't sell them at Titan because it's a bit too adventurous for us, we find. But if that was your cup of tea, then they're available out there in the market. So within Africa, I wanted to touch about when to travel as well, to give you an idea of when to go to places. So within Africa, there are really 2 main seasons that you should be concentrating on. That's either the wet or the dry season. The wet season is also called the green season, as this is when the countries are full of lush green grasses and everything looks amazing because obviously the rains have come, so everything grows. The benefit of the green season is that many animals are in calf, so they're only calved when there's enough grasses around to feed their young. So but it's great because you get to get some fantastic photographs of the young animals in Africa. Also, the green season is great for birding as well. So if you're into your birding, it's a wonderful time to go. Most people, however, choose to travel in the dry season, and for good reason, as this is when the vegetation is much thinner. So obviously the rains haven't been, so everything starts to die back, and so the vegetation is much thinner, and therefore it's easier to spot animals in the bush. And you don't really have to go searching quite as hard as you would in the green season. Also, what happens is the animals have to come to selected water holes. So out in the bush, there are only so many watering holes or like ponds where they can drink from. So they have to come to those. And the advantage is your rangers will know where those water holes are, but you get these great concentrations of animals gathered around water holes. So that's the reason you would travel during that season. The other advantage of traveling in dry season is you don't get wet either. So obviously, I think you guys are based up in Scotland and we're down here in England, we get wet enough. So it's quite nice to when you're on holiday, you don't have to get wet. So that's another advantage of traveling during that season. So looking at the countries in a bit more detail, so when's best to go and when not to go. Obviously, there's a very clear chart here with the colour coding, which sort of helps. But I'll just sort of explain some of the reasons behind that. So South Africa, the best time to go is between May and September. Like I said, the vegetation is very thin during that time. Do note, however, during that May to September period, it can get cold at night. So if you are travelling around South Africa during those months, do make sure you take some jumpers and cardigans because it can get pretty chilly in the early mornings and late at night. So do take some warmer clothes for that period. And if you've got any whale enthusiasts out there, the best time to travel to see those is between July and November. And what happens then is the whales will come close to shore to give birth and calf, and they need the shallow waters to do that. The great thing about whale migration as well, it happens along the southern coast of South Africa, is that you can literally walk along the headlands and along the beach, and the whales are right in front of you on the shoreline, so you can see them without even having to get in a boat. So if you're like me and not very good on boats, it's a good advantage that, so you can see them from the shoreline. Times to avoid in South Africa, definitely from sort of late October to mid-April. say not to avoid, but this is the green season, so it's harder to spot the animals, I suppose, in the wildlife. But it is a great time for birders. And then December to February can get very hot, so be aware of that. So December through to Feb is a very hot season in South Africa, so do be prepared for the heat if you go during that time. And then finally, December in South Africa, and also August, I find sometimes around the school holiday times, you tend to get the domestic market starts to travel. So sometimes the national parks can get quite busy during this sort of late December and mid-August as well. Now, Zimbabwe, Zambia and Botswana, they follow a fairly similar pattern in terms of the weather. But what I would like to touch upon quickly is a lot of people want to go to Victoria Falls when they're down in Southern Africa. So when's the best time to go and see that? Well, it's between May and September. And the reason is that's when the falls are at they call mid-flow. So it's when there's not too much water, but there's still water there. I've been in March before when it's full flow and you can't see a thing. It gets there's so much mist and spray coming up, you can't actually see the falls, so you miss the opportunity and you get soaking wet as well. So March, yeah, it tends not to be a great time to go to the falls, and the same actually is sort of November time as well is not a great time to see the falls either, because often the falls dry up at that time. So sometimes November, December, the falls can be dry. So definitely between sort of May to September, best time to see the Victoria Falls. Now Kenya. The best time to go to Kenya is between Jan and Feb, and then June and October. The migration historically reaches the Masai Mara in August, so that can fluctuate, obviously it's nature we're working with, but normally it's between sort of late July, August, they all start coming over, and you'll get that amazing river crossing where the wildebeest have to jump over the river through the crocodiles, and then often the lions and leopards are waiting the other side to try and run them down as well. So you get that amazing spectacle of nature at its rawest. But yeah, definitely if you go to the Masai Mara, so August the migration arrives, and they stay in the Masai Mara until October time, so they're there for some time. So if you travel between August and October, you'll see a huge density of animals in the Masai Mara. But for Kenya, definitely avoid April and May. As you can see, those are yellowed out there. There's some really heavy rains during this period, so it's going to be a very wet, and it's very hard to do safaris during that time as well. So try and avoid April, May if you're going to Kenya. There can be some rains in November and December in Kenya and East Africa, but they tend to be fairly light, so I tend not to touch on those too much. Then Madagascar, which we obviously saw the weird and wonderful animals earlier, a fantastic time to travel there is between April and May, or September and November. So they have fairly short seasons in Madagascar, but that's when there's less rain around, so it's a good time to go. Madagascar though, please do avoid January or February, because this is their cyclone season, so you're going to get wet and potentially blown away. So definitely avoid January and February, because that's a pretty sketchy time to be in Madagascar. Now, dining experiences. In Africa, I tend to find that most menus are still led by meat. So there's a lot of meat on the menus. However, that's not to say that vegetarians and vegans aren't catered for, because they certainly are, especially if you give some advance warning as well. We can definitely put the feelers out on the ground to make sure that happens for you. Fresh produce is often in abundance in East Africa and South Africa, and I actually enjoy going to the markets to see the array of colours that are on offer. So yeah, there's a whole variety of food to eat in Africa. In South Africa, meals tend to be more a la carte, whereas in East Africa, so Kenya, Tanzania, you tend to eat more on a buffet style. But that could potentially change, I suppose, in the coming months with COVID. We'll wait and see what happens there. South Africa is also exceptional value for money. I've got a picture here of the steak and chips. So I don't think that is a South African steak, but South African steaks are the size of your dinner plate. They're massive, they're huge. So you'd often have that on the menu. So you get big steaks, side of chips, and a bottle of wine or a bottle of beer, and it often comes in around about £10. So the value for money in South Africa is exceptional. I think last time I checked, it was around about 21 Rand to £1. So the value for money is just incredible. So when you're dining out, you'll get some great dining experiences at fairly cheap rates. Also, when you're on safari, I think the ostrich picture sums this up perfectly, you'll be served some local delicacies. So when either in East or Southern Africa, you'll be offered potentially a range of things like ostrich, crocodile, kudu, zebra, impala. And also sometimes, if you're out in the real bush, sometimes your ranger might stop at a termite mound and you'll be potentially fed some termites. They're a bit crunchy, but an amazing source of protein. But that's often they try to test you and see if you'd like to have one. But they're quite interesting to eat as well. Now, what to wear on safari? I often get asked this question. And when I am asked it, I always say, first and foremost, just ensure that you're comfortable in whatever you're wearing. I would certainly not recommend clients going out and buying a brand new wardrobe, like that chap there in the top left-hand corner. You just don't need to do that. The main thing is making sure that you're comfortable first and foremost. So when on safari, dress tends to be very, very casual and informal. And that's the same when you come back for dinner of an evening. You don't really get dressed up for that either. It's often you'll be in khaki trousers or chinos or shorts if it's warmer, then tops and shirts. You really don't need to have special clothing when on safari. It's very relaxed, very casual. What I would say though is do avoid bright colours. I think the Queen's giving us a classic example of what not to wear on safari. So she's in some lovely neon colours. If anyone dares wear those on the safari, then you're not going to see many animals because they will just run to the bush, so they will get scared off. Also, I've got a funny story. When I was in Tanzania once, we went around the whole day and we were just being plagued by tsetse fly, which are little flies. You don't see them much anymore. They've eradicated a lot of them, but they nip. They're quite nippy, and they come in swarms. So you can see them coming from some way away when you're out on safari. And we were being plagued by them all day. And I had a very patient guide with me. And near the end, I said, "Oh, these tsetse fly are really doing me in today. Where have they all come from and what's happening?" He said, "It's you, mate. It's you." And I had a navy blue t-shirt on. He said they love navy blue, so they must be seeing your navy blue. So we had to quickly swap tops, and it actually works. If you don't have navy blue, you won't get pested by tsetse fly. So there's a bit of advice. And then also elephants. Interesting fact here, they don't like perfume or aftershave. So one less thing to pack, I suppose. But if you don't wear perfume or aftershave, you're not going to offend the elephants, and we don't want to upset those guys. So definitely there's some sort of study out there which links back to that, about they've got a very good sense of smell. And finally, I've got here about walking shoes. It's definitely worth investing in some walking shoes or boots if you are going on safari. I have done safaris in trainers before, and it's fine, it's actually fine, but sometimes you are walking across some rough terrain. So to have that stability, around the ankles especially, is quite an advantage. So maybe investing in walking shoes or boots is definitely a way forward if you're going on safari. I often get asked this question as well, is the difference between East Africa and South Africa. So South Africa and Kenya are the main touristic countries that are visited from the UK. And I often get asked, why should I visit one over the other? Well, firstly, I'm convinced that neither will disappoint if you travel to them. They both offer such amazing diversity within their own countries. It's just acknowledging that there are differences between the two experiences. So Kenya, like I said earlier, has got more historical links. They were the birthplace of photographic safaris. So they've been established for much longer. The wildlife in Kenya is still truly wild as well, and still follows a migratory route. So it has to fend for itself in Kenya and Tanzania. Whereas in South Africa, the reserves tend to be stocked, especially on the private reserves. Kruger is the exception to this. So Kruger is still truly wild and not fenced. But many of South African reserves are fenced and stocked to a degree, and very well managed. The advantage of that, though, is that the rangers know where a lot of the animals are at times, so that does help. Then accommodation, South Africa holds all the keys when it holds all the aces when it comes to comparing accommodation with Kenya. There are some wonderful luxurious properties in South Africa with reasonable price tags as well, so it's great value. In Kenya, it's a little bit more rustic, but they're still very comfortable, and there are some hidden gems in Kenya as well, which hopefully we've got within our tours. The benefit of Kenyan accommodation, though, compared to South African, is that because they were one of the first ones to enter the tourist market, or the photographic touring market, they've got some lodges in some of the best locations, because they set the lodges up prior to building regulations. And what we know about wildlife today, we shouldn't really be intruding too much, but the lodges are there now, and we can make good use of them. But they're right in the heart of the action. They're right in the heart of these national parks. South Africa came to the tourist market slightly later, so they're, I suppose, were a bit wiser, and they built outside a lot of the national parks. So you sometimes have to travel in. or you're on the outskirts of the park. So Kenya has the ace in terms of where the actual accommodation is set. So coming to the end now, I thought I've touched a lot about safari and wildlife experiences today, because I feel that's the main reason people want to go to Africa. But for South Africa, it's actually called a world in one country, and for good reason, because they do have an incredibly rich and diverse set of attractions, experiences and cultures within their country. So, and it's massive as well, South Africa. It's incredibly diverse. And for good reason, Archbishop Desmond Tutu did name it the Rainbow Nation, because it has 11 official languages representing the different cultures and groups and tribes within South Africa. There are 9 regions in South Africa. I tend, however, to split them into 4 for touristic purposes to make it a bit easier to see, because some of these places you wouldn't go to on a holiday. And so I sort of try and cherry pick the top 4. I thought I'd quickly take you through those before I conclude. So in the green section, and more where that zebra sits, you have what I call Wildlife Corner. So that's where Kruger National Park is. So that's where that wildlife experience happens, basically, in South Africa. So that's where Mala Mala is, Kruger. Then below that, you've got the yellow section, which is KwaZulu-Natal. So this is where the Drakensberg Mountain is. You've got some amazing dramatic scenery. It's Tolkien, I believe, that Lord of the Ring books, he based them all around the Drakensberg Mountain, so you get his amazing mountain scenery. But also below that is where a lot of the Boer and Zulu wars happened. So if you think about Michael Caine in Zulu, that's where all that happened, in his red coat running through the fields and fighting off the Zulus. That's exactly where that happened. So you get all the cultural stuff in KwaZulu-Natal. So that's where a lot of people go there. And that bunny chow that I spoke about earlier, the dinner with the loaf of bread and the curry, that happens down that coastal route there. Then you've got number 3, I've put the whale on there, so that's along the garden route. So you'll see the whale migration happening across there, but you've also got the mountain ridge. So you've got the sea one side and these mountain stroke gardens the other side, hence why it's called the garden route. But it's absolutely beautiful along there. And then finally, you have Cape Town and the Winelands, which is depicted by the grapes. But the Cape Town is obviously a very cosmopolitan city, fantastic for sightseeing, Table Mountain, going to the Cape of Good Hope, or going to see the penguins at Boulders Beach. So Cape Town's a great hub to base yourself. And then the Winelands is about an hour and a half from Cape Town inland, is where South Africa creates all their fantastic wines. And we often spend some time here on our group tours. Wine tasting and also eating, because they have some of the best the restaurants around that area. So Michelin star restaurants, if there were Michelin stars in South Africa, which there aren't, they will be awarded in this area, because some of the restaurants are just fantastic. And once again, it's incredible value for money. So that's the 4 areas of South Africa I always like to highlight. And then lastly, I just thought I'd leave you with a couple more tips of things to do. So definitely take some binoculars. There will be countless opportunities where you'll want to see something close up or in more detail, and you don't want to miss out on this opportunity. Your rangers will have a pair of binoculars, often their own. However, this is first-hand experience speaking here. After a 3rd or 4th time of asking, it can get a bit embarrassing to keep borrowing their binoculars. So I always say invest in some decent binoculars. I mean, you're traveling 13,000 miles to go to Africa, so it's probably worthwhile investing a little bit to actually see what you have paid and went to see. So some good binoculars is a good investment. And the other thing I always pack when I go to Africa is a good pair of long socks. These are just basically just roll over your trousers, because sometimes when you're in the bush, and if you're doing little walking safaris, which you sometimes might do, there are some little creepy crawlies and stuff. So it's nice to have those, just pull them up over your trousers so you don't get any surprises going up your legs. So always a good pair of walking socks and long socks are good to take. But that's it from me, really. So if you've got any questions, I'll be trying my best to answer them. And otherwise, I'll pass back to Michelle, because I think she wants to finish off. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Unmute myself. Thanks, Phil. That was really good. I'm not sure. Michelle had a wee technical problem. Michelle, are you there?
I am.
Oh, she's back. Perfect. She's back in. But Phil, that was amazing. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I mean, as most of my clients know, I've actually been to South Africa a few times, and I've done safari in Kenya and in South Africa. So yeah, I could thoroughly recommend it. and Cape Town and the wineries. It's just an amazing country. And interestingly enough, pretty much only an hour or two ahead of us, depending on the time of year. So you don't get that jet lag when you go there, which is fantastic. I'm going to hand over to Michelle. Michelle with the pink hair. She may want to explain her gorgeous hair colour.
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually raising money for Alzheimer's. So they're running a campaign at the minute for, it's called Brave the Colour. And the idea is you have your hair a pretty wacky colour for 2 weeks. This went a bit wackier than maybe I was anticipating. But yeah, no, that's fine. I'm rocking the pink hair. I'm trying to pretend that I don't have it. And then I walk around Tesco's forgetting, because I took my hair behind my ears and I can't see it. And then you just get these weird looks from people and I go, oh yes, I've got pink hair, which is a bit strange. Thanks, Phil. That was really, really enlightening. Again, I've been in travel over 20 years. I haven't been fortunate enough to go to South Africa yet, but it's been on my bucket list forever. And every time I speak to Phil, every time he launches a new tour and we do some training, I come back with a new list, a new one to do. There's some fabulous tours in the brochure, and I am going to just make sure that Moira can order you all brochures to be delivered to you at home. But some of my favourites that I know Phil's put together, the Zimbabwe tour, I came away from his training for that one a couple of months ago going, wow, I want to do this. The idea of being in one of those houseboats on Lake Kariba and being able to be right there, Zimbabwe, being right there on the lake and being able to go off on these little tenders and do safari and know the animals can come up to you in the lake just blew me away. So I think that's a perfect moment. I love our Best of South Africa. That's the tour that you can go and stay at Mala Mala in. And then the other one that we do a lot is Sensational South Africa. And I've got a little video of that anybody that wants to stay on when we're done, I can play and I can show you. And that takes you through the tour day by day. And that's really fantastic. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm a train geek. I don't know what it is about trains, but I love a holiday where I can get a good train journey in. And we did Tracks of Africa that came out into the brochure a couple of years ago. And that for me is number one on my list of things I want to do next. So I'm going to share my screen a little bit and just show you the last few slides and hopefully, oh no, not that one. Hopefully this will work. So award-winning holidays. We are the most decorated travel company at the British Travel Awards for the second year running, had over 20 awards. We are voted best escorted tour operator by travel readers in the Telegraph. Good Housekeeping recommends us with 95% of their customers. And we're the best mainstream touring company at the Travel Weekly Globes back in 2019. Obviously, we couldn't defend it in 2020 because it got cancelled. But that, for us, it's a bit like the Oscars for the travel industry, a really important accolade, and one that we share with Miles Morgan because they also get massive Travel Weekly Globe Awards every year and have done incredibly well 5 years running for the Southwest. So brochures, we have currently a selection. So you've got worldwide, we are on sale for the whole of 21 and most of 22 for our long haul tours. So these can be booked now. Most of them have got a £49 deposit per person. So it's not a massive risk in terms of what you're outlaying for holiday bookings at the moment. That runs up until the end of March for definite. It might get extended. Obviously, you've also got our River Cruise 2022 brochure, some gorgeous new river cruises in there. We've launched a new river cruise ship, our MS River Discovery, and she looks spectacular. Europe 2021, the launch of 2022 brochure has been delayed due to COVID, but it's coming. Most of the tours are on sale. I'm feeding those through to Miles Morgan daily as they get loaded. So I know yesterday we launched 2 new tours, one for Turkey and one for Romania. And they've also got your rail holidays, your stay and explore and your UK in there. And again, we've still got the solos and the small group tours. Now, what you can do if you'd like a brochure, if you let Moira know, send her a message, put it on chat, however you normally contact her, she can order those on our website and they will be delivered direct to you at home, but you would still book through Moira. So you won't get any direct marketing from us. You're not going to go into our database. You're Moira's customer. And she will still make the booking on your behalf, but it's just a way at the moment, because travel agents are shut, it's not easy to pop in and grab a brochure. Now, I have got a special little offer just for you customers that are in the presentation today, Moira. So anybody that does book now, within, I think it's the next 7 days, we will also give you a £20 lifestyle voucher, which you can use at a selection of places, whether you want to treat yourself to a nice coffee once Costa opens, or whether you want to put it against some shopping online or otherwise, and we'll send that to you direct after you've booked. So that's a nice little easy one. So that's it in terms of presentation. Obviously, we are going to do a little Q&A now. So if you've got any specifics that you want to ask about, any specific tours, any general information from either me or Phil, now's the time to shout.
Anybody got any questions? You can unmute yourself if you've got the mute button on. Thanks.
Do you need vaccinations, Moira?
For South Africa? Yeah, they would be, it would just be the normal ones, Francis, when you're going anywhere, you know, sort of outside Europe. So your typhoid, polio, tetanus should be covered for in HEPA. For the Kruger at certain times, there would be, you know, sort of the malaria risk, you know, but you can get a tablet, which when I go, I normally get Malarone, and you take it sort of the week before you go, when you're there, and a week after. It's 1 tablet a day. So Phil, you would maybe fill in on that a bit as well, Phil, because you've obviously done so many.
Yeah, so Moira, if you don't want to, because some people don't want to take malarial tablets, so we have created a tour of South Africa where you don't need to take malarial tablets, but you can still have the wildlife experience. So it's contrast of the Cape, and it travels basically from the Eastern Cape all the way along the garden route into the winelands in Cape Town. That's where we do some fantastic wine tasting experiences as well on that tour, and go to some lovely restaurants. So contrast of the Cape, if people don't want to take malarial tablets, then there is an option still to go to South Africa and experience wildlife and what South Africa has to offer at the same time.
What about visa?
No, you don't need a visa for South
No
Africa.
visa, yeah.
I've past experience, you know about that. Visas.
Yeah. It's
how
not like
long
India.
How long would you be in each particular place? 1 day, 2 days, or a day in each place?
It all depends per tour. It depends what tour you go on, but normally we spend between 3, maybe 4 nights in each place. Sometimes there are 2s and 1s. It just depends how much depth there is, how much there is to uncover, I suppose, in each region. But somewhere like Kruger, for instance, when you're in Kruger, we often try and at least do 3, if not 4 nights, because you want to be there a decent amount of time for the wildlife to get the best opportunities.
So if you do get the brochures, it's really easy to see that and see how the pace of the tour goes. I don't know if you can, if I hold this up, can you see the little map here?
Yeah.
So it has red dots that have a number in. Those red dots tell you how many nights you're spending in that destination. And the green dots are places of interest, visits, something you might be seeing there. But it's quite easy to see the pace of the holiday and how many nights. Generally, as a whole, throughout the whole of the Titan program, we tend to try and avoid 1-night stays because we know nobody wants to pack and unpack quite that quickly. We want you to enjoy a destination, but there are certain places where a 1-night stay is suitable. There isn't a lot going on. It's more of a travel stop more than anything else. But yeah, we do have a pacing in the guides as well. So you have a 1, 2, or a 3. Most Titan tours are 2. We know our customers. We know how fit, healthy, well you are. We know you want to immerse yourselves in the area, but we're also, most of our customers are not 20-year-old spring chickens. So we know that the pacing of the tours has been designed for our customers. I can keep up.
Does the accommodation that you prefer, does that dictate the price?
So
whether you preferring to stay in a hotel or prefer to stay in a tent?
So most of the tours have set accommodation. So Phil, in all his wisdom, he gets to pick the accommodations on the tours. So it's not, we have an occasional tour in the brochure where you can choose standard or superior and you can upgrade accommodation, but the vast majority, the whole tour stays in the same accommodation. And that's been Phil's choice as to what he thinks is most suitable for that area. So based on location, service, quality, that sort of thing.
And the great thing is as well, we've got such strong relationships with our hotels and suppliers on the ground. We have done for many, many years. So we do get some exceptional rates down in especially South Africa, especially. So yeah, regardless of the accommodation, there's some good rates.
With us here in Dundee, do we fly from Glasgow down to London or fly from Edinburgh to London, or
yes.
What is,
so the VIP pickup will pick you up at your home address and it will take you to the nearest airport. So whether that's Glasgow, obviously we've got some customers that will fly out of Inverness, for example, some of them in Edinburgh, and then that'll connect you down to London for the Heathrow or Gatwick flight, depending on what you're going on.
Okay, no.
Yeah, you talked about these bugs bite. Up here, we get a lot of midges. Don't know if you know what these are.
Yeah, I mean,
Idiot.
yeah.
I get eaten alive when I go to Loch Ness.
Do you have a repellent as such, or do you just don't wear blue t-shirts?
Yeah, definitely don't wear blue t-shirts first and foremost. But what you'll find, obviously, the midges are much smaller. In Africa, the bugs are a bit bigger, so they tend not to. You don't get pestered by them that much, if I'm really honest. They're not too bad. But what you will do in your rooms, in most of the hotels and the camps we stay at, you'll have repellents in your room. So they're provided by the lodges and the camps. So they're often plug-in ones, or if you're in a tented environment, sometimes the maids before bed, they will light like a certain candle for you to sort of keep them away.
Right.
But also, I would recommend taking some spray on repellent for yourself as well. So some little bit of bug spray. You can get some from Boots and stuff. But yeah.
What about access to money, ATMs and that, if you're out in the middle of the wild?
You don't need any money.
Would the hotel have that facility to exchange money if necessary, or are credit cards acceptable all over the place?
Yeah, so all the camps and lodges will accept credit cards and all major credit cards. There aren't many ATMs, if I'm honest, unless you're in a major city, then there aren't many ATMs scattered around. So definitely you'd need to take some, probably, well, you can easily get South African Rand or US dollars before you travel. You can take that in with you. But it is becoming much more of a card society in Africa. And it's sort of tap and go like you do in the UK at the moment, I suppose. So there aren't many ATMs, but and also with Titan trips, most stuff's included anyway. So the amount of money you'll need to take with you is fairly minimal, because we've included most of your meals, and it's only things like souvenirs normally that you'd need to pay for.
There's no actually any additional trips over and above that's in the brochure. You have an option to go on a different trip.
Yes,
No.
sometimes there are extra trips you can book. There's not. I don't do too many in Africa because I want to make sure that I include everything that you'd want to see anyway. But there are ones like Robben Island we do as an additional, but you do that before you go. You'd book that before you go. So if you want to see where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned just off the shore of Cape Town, you can do that trip locally. And you'd pay for that. You pay us for that before you go, because once again we don't want you taking too much cash out with you. But in South Africa, there aren't many optional excursions in addition, because most of the time you're in the bush, so you're on safari, and that is your activity, I suppose.
Just to give you an example, the Best of South Africa tour, now that's a 19-day tour. Now that includes 17 excursions in the tour package.
Yeah, so you'd be cussed out by the time you get home.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the beauty of the programme, really, is there's leisure time built in, everything you can do at a reasonable pace. It's not busy, but it's a bit like, we wouldn't take you to Paris and not include a trip to go and see the Eiffel Tower. We include those things that you would expect to see and do on the tour automatically. And that goes across the whole Titan product, not just the Africa product. Yeah, it'd be a bit bad, like we don't take you to Lake Louise and don't show it to you. We don't take you to, as I say, anywhere really. Like, you can't go to the Grand Canyon and then not go and see the Grand Canyon. We would automatically include those fees in.
So we assume that all the prices are in the brochures.
Yeah, all the prices. I'm going to send Moira a selection of 8 of our Africa tours when this is finished. They'll come through later today probably. Moira will probably get them to you at the end part of the week, maybe Monday. And that will show 8 tours. I'm going to select those with Phil, some of our favourites. And that'll have the pricing, the dates, how many excursions, how many meals, how many days in.
And can you also include, when you're sending that out, any 2022 brochures you have on the East Coast of America?
Yeah, so I've already spoken to Moira. She told me about the Donaldsons before we even started. And it was all lovely. She was all lovely about me.
Right. Don't believe everything you hear.
So yeah, so we know that you're interested in possibly a Canada tour. So that's in the same brochure. It's in the worldwide brochure. So Moira will make sure that you get a copy of that delivered. So the brochure out at the minute is 21.22. The tours are all loaded. You can book today. If it's Rocky Mountaineer, that's the only thing to say is that isn't a £49 deposit. There's a couple of tours. Yeah, something like that, anything with the African Queen in, anything with Rocky Mountaineering, there's a slightly higher deposit, but everything else is £49.
Okay, thank you. We'll leave you to answer questions from other people. Thank you very much.
I know. I was trying to think who's actually been to Africa that's on it. I don't think, Ali, you've not been.
No, not been at all. Sounds incredibly interesting.
Yeah, it is actually. See seeing the animals and things like that so close up, it's amazing. Yeah, it is really. And you know, and I just love Cape Town and that Eastern Cape area as well. It's really, really nice. But then, like Michelle was saying, that there are, you know, they do the deep south. If you want to do Memphis, New Orleans, you know, Nashville, that type of thing. You know,
Southern Sights and Sounds is one of my favourite tours.
Yeah, that's quite an amazing one. You know, the music ones. Yeah, everywhere, Canada, India.
Do you know what? Actually, no, I've got two others, my favourites. India's Golden Triangle with Ranthambore. Again, another, and that's a really good value for money tour. It's 10 days. It comes in under £2,000, and that you get to go and see the tigers. I got to see a Bengal tiger. I actually cried, and I'm not a very emotional person. I thought the Taj Mahal was lovely. You know, the building was nice, pretty. Cried at the Bengal tiger. It was amazing. And then Peru, I did Peru just before lockdown last year, did Footsteps of the Incas, and that tour blew me away. Absolutely amazing. So we're very lucky. We've got some amazing experiences. Me and Phil have got a beautiful job that gives us some amazing things to do as work as well. But yeah, anybody that's got any questions that are outside of Africa, yeah, send them through to Moira and she'll get me on the
Europe
phone.
as well. I mean, you've got a really great Europe programme as well. If people don't want to necessarily go, even you've got some amazing European tours as well. Yeah, really cover everything. So
Phil, you do the cold part of Europe, if I'm right, aren't you?
Yes, I get to do the Scandinavia and Iceland, so I get those bits up there. So yeah, that's really interesting. I think one of my early photos was me with a local Viking. So that was a fun trip.
Yeah, saw that, yeah. But I think overall, I would say to everybody, I think what people like about the tours is because you're with an expert that knows the area, and I guess it's that security kind of aspect of traveling with, you know, a guide and other people, and you'll still get to see places off the beaten track, but you probably feel really secure.
You know what, it's really strange because obviously I came to work from Titan having been a travel agent. I was a branch manager, and then I came to Titan about 4 years ago. Loved the product, sold it, but hadn't experienced it. And I thought that I wasn't really a tours person. I don't travel brilliantly on coaches. I just didn't think it was for me. So when my boss said to me, "Oh, we're going to send you on one. Let's send you out and we'll see what you think." And I came back going, why does everybody not do this? If you do a normal package holiday, if you think you get on the plane, you get met by a rep at the airport, you put on a coach, you're taken to your hotel, you book a couple of excursions from the hotel to go out where you get on a coach with lots of other people, and you go and do the excursion, come back again. The only difference in the escorted tour is that every time you get on the coach, it's the same people. There's no expectation for you to sit down and dine en masse as such, unless you're doing those sort of like evenings when you're on safari and stuff where you all sit down. But again, there's no expectation that you have to be social, but it's there if you want to. And I've literally got the bug. I've done numerous river cruises. I've done several of my own holidays now as escorted tours, because you see so much, there's so much included. I don't think I'll ever go back to a standard package holiday again because of what's included and how easy it is and how stress-free it is for me. I say in the home pickup just ticks all the boxes. I feel like royalty when the car turns up.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it? Yeah, the home pickup. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Does anybody have any other questions? Because I'm aware that you'll be needing your lunch soon.
Yeah, gosh, we have gone on. Sorry.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. It's been great. No, I really appreciate it. I mean, it's been great. And Phil, that was fantastic, because obviously you're really passionate about Africa, and yeah, that was really, really good. You know, so Michelle and I'll do the thing with the brochures. And if anybody's got any other questions, I can obviously direct them at Phil if there's anything that I can't answer. But yeah, we'll get the brochures to you. And just like to thank you all for coming on, and hopefully it's inspired you a little bit. It's been lovely to see you all again, because yeah, what a year we've all had, isn't it? You know, in our industry, as many of you know, we've kind of all had quite a challenging time, but you know, we're still looking forward, and we're still, you know, we know that people will want to travel and go back to their old lives, you know, again and explore. So yeah. Sorry?
The 2022 bookings are really taken off. We've already had some tours sell out. So if you are considering a 2022 departure, do look at it. Certainly where we had all those cancellations to 2020, some moved into 21, some of them where they were cancelled again at the early part of this year have now already moved into 22. So we are seeing some tours that are already getting quite difficult on availability. So yeah, if you are looking at those tours, the deposit's there to allow you to do it early, but I would book early. You know you're getting the best price from us, because if we reduce the price later, we're going to refund that anyway. So you're never going to be out of pocket by booking early.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, that's great. Oh well, thanks, and thanks everybody for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks,
And I'll
Phil.
get
Thanks,
some brochures to
Michelle.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good
Bye.
afternoon.
Bye, everyone. Thanks a lot.